How loyal can a dog really be? Looking at the dog in front of the screen, the old grandfather couldn't help but burst into tears. He did not expect that after a fire, the dog that had accompanied him for 10 years was still alive and waiting for his master to return in the home that had long been reduced to rubble. When the rescue team rescued it, the veterinarian brought food and water for it. However, the dog, which had been hungry for 2 days, refused to eat. Oscar was adopted by a pair of old scavengers since he was a child, and he has accompanied the two old people for more than 10 years. Unfortunately, the old grandma passed away not long ago, and a few months later, the house was burned to ashes by a sudden fire, and the grandpa also disappeared in its world. But even though the home has been burned to ruins, Oscar still guards the former home during the day. He will roam the nearby streets because it is full of memories shared by it and its master. But in this familiar environment, it can find any trace of its owner. Oscar always runs home full of expectations, hoping that the owner can call him to eat as usual. But every time he waits only for disappointment. Maybe he thinks the master was buried in the ruins, and Oscar desperately searched for his master's breath. But every time the result ended in disappointment, he called out to his master helplessly, and every wail of grief in his life represented the endless longing for his master. In this way, he waited from day to night. Do you think this dog is loyal? The deeds of the dog touched the nearby residents. Because its leg was burned, it would be infected at any time. The rescue team decided to take action immediately. But when someone approached the yard, Oscar immediately roared and threatened, and he would not allow anyone to approach here. The program team finally found out about the grandfather through inquiries and visits. It turned out that because of the fire, the grandfather suffered extensive burns all over his body and has been receiving treatment in the hospital. Afterwards, the staff turned on the computer, and the moment he saw Oscar, the grandfather burst into tears. He didn't expect that Oscar was still alive and waiting for him to go home in the burned ruins. Looking at the burns on the dog, the grandpa was very sad. He didn't know how Oscar had fed his stomach for the past 2 months. The old man choked up and said, "As long as I am still alive, I will never let this dog stray." Looking at this dog, the old man was full of guilt. And then the staff returned to the scene to carry out rescue. First, they built an iron cage, and then found the owner's clothes in the ruins. After putting it in the cage, they turned on the computer and played the pre-recorded video in a loop, hoping to attract the dog to enter in this way. A few hours later, Oscar came back, and he limped into the door. When he heard the master's voice, he froze in place and couldn't even believe his ears. After hesitating for a moment, he followed smells and sounds entered the cage, and the rescue team took him to a veterinary hospital for treatment. After some examinations, the doctors said that the dog's burns were not serious and healed soon after treatment. But the next question left the veterinarian at a loss. Maybe he missed his master too much, but he was indifferent to the delicious food right in front of him. For 2 days, he didn't eat or drink. The doctor said that he might not live long if he continued like this. No way. The rescuers contacted the owner again, seeing Oscar on hunger strike in the video. The owner shed tears again. He blamed himself very much because he couldn't take care of Oscar at present. At the reporter's suggestion, the grandfather recorded a video of letting Oscar eat and brought back the grandfather's belongings, hoping to let the dog understand that its owner is still alive. Oscar smelled the master's scent, and then the reporter turned on the computer. When he heard the master's familiar voice, Oscar was immediately attracted. His ears were shaking constantly, and his eyes were fixed on the screen. He confirmed the master's voice over and over again. And finally, the next second, a miracle happened. He began to eat with big mouthfuls, and within a minute, the can was eaten up. It seemed that at this moment, his life was once again, hope was ignited. 1 month later, the old man was discharged from the hospital in order to welcome Oscar back home. The old man specially made a new home for him. He kept wandering around, worried that Oscar would not recognize him. However, when Oscar saw his grandpa, he was so excited that he broke free from the rope. He quickly ran to his master, and the long-lost sense of happiness struck again. At this moment, They were already crying. Maybe they never thought that they could still be with each other. Half a year later, the subsidized new house was built, and Oscar and his master moved into the new home smoothly. But I think for Oscar, home is where the owner is. The dog is a part of the owner's life, but the owner is the dog's whole world. May there be no more wandering in the world.